love it. Oh, don't do this to me, StreamYard. You're live.
All
Hello,
right.
I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome to Tea Time with Tech Founders. This is a new show. It's our second episode. I'm so excited to introduce you to Darlene. Before I get there, some housekeeping. Why this show is different. So, Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders, my other show, is talking to marketing leaders who are helping B2B tech companies run their marketing, whether you're a startup all the way up to scale up and enterprise. But one thing that's been missing for me is with the companies that they work for and those startup stories, and hearing from the folks who started it all and why they started it. And we tend to hear the stories from companies that have already made it, and that's years down the road from the startups who are just getting out of their garages. And so I thought, what better way than to put my podcasting tools to the test and bring those founders on and hear from them on why now, what their story is, and what it's like growing a company in this day and age from the trenches. And I just love a good story, and I can't wait to share this one with you. Darlene, thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. When we had our prep call, I was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. Like, these are the folks I want to be hanging out with and figuring out why they're doing what they're doing, why they left their comfy 9 to 5 and made this leap to go out and do their own thing. And what a story you have for us. So why don't you tell us a bit about your company and what it does and the problem it solves? And let's start there.
Okay. My company is called Trimax Access Solutions, and it is it's more or less our focus is on healthcare. It's a software application that's for IT security administrators working in healthcare to identify job roles as well as access management, which are profiles, and then the training requirements for employees that work in the hospital organization. Um, it's pretty robust application. It just basically provides an opportunity for security administrators to be able to identify the access that's being granted in our EHR system, and EHR being the electronic health record, which where we keep all the patient data.
Talk about privacy.
Right.
Security,
Yeah.
kind of important.
Yes. Exactly. And with that increasing, with security increasing as well as like ransomware and all that stuff, it's important, for us to understand and know how to protect that EHR system. So we need to know who's in there at all times.
Absolutely. Uh, how did you find this to be like? What was the moment for you where you realized that this was a problem and that you could solve it? Like, what was that origin story?
Well, in all honesty, well, I've been in, let me start with, I've been in healthcare for pretty much about 3 decades, about 30 years now. I started my career in on the nursing side of things, being a registered nurse, working in various areas. And I practiced for about 11, 12 years. And then I decided that I wanted to learn about computers. I said, I want to change my career and do something different. So I wanted to develop web pages at the time. And this was probably 2 decades ago. And so what happened was I went back to school for IT, and I said, I want to do this. And the program I was in had an emphasis in development, web development. And I had applied for a job for a web developer, and ended up getting the nursing manager. They were using IT was actually coming into play at the same time, for healthcare. And so my resume ended up getting sent to a nursing manager that needed an IT person. And so I ended up in bridging that gap between healthcare and IT. Yeah. And so with that, I worked on the back end side, supporting and implementing healthcare electronic medical record. And my first, during that time, I used to build orders for physicians and do a lot of the clinical stuff, but I was also the security administrator for my team. So it ended up, security was very challenging, but I liked it, because it was challenging. So I ended up doing that for pretty much for the last 2 decades, of my career. So ended up going into consulting later on in my career. And then as I started working with hospitals, I noticed that it was just a lot of time spent on redundancy and, issues with access, and people not having the right access, or you give them the access. IT security people were mirroring other users, or even, sometimes it would be looking off of a spreadsheet that was outdated and everything. So there really wasn't a tool for us to use to kind of identify those important key things, like your employee job title, your or your job code, and what access you should have, and then what training you should have. And it was like this almost at pretty much every organization I went to. And it was just such a problem. But the turning point for me was when I worked for a client. Um, and at the same time, they were trying to implement a software, the EHR system, as well as a network, trying to change their domains on the network side. And they were doing this project simultaneously, which was not recommended. But anyway, it ended up that when we started to do the implementation, we didn't, we didn't have any source of truth when it came to identifying roles and for the users and stuff. So it ended up being a disaster. I mean, it was not a good thing. And there was a lot of, um, I would say, tension with that. And it ended up that, the guy that really was the FTE person, he ended up leaving the organization 2 weeks before our go live. So it ended up falling on me. Yeah. And it was not good. And so at that point, I decided, I was so frustrated and so upset about it because, I was the fall guy for that. And for me, that was devastating. It was enough to say, hey, you know what? Somebody needs to create something. I didn't think it was me. I didn't know I was supposed to be the person doing it, but God put it on my spirit to do it. And that was my turning point. I was like, this is ridiculous, man. I got to fix this. You know what I mean? So that's how it
Yeah.
ended up.
Hey, way to take the bull by the horns, make it happen.
Yeah.
How did it
So,
start? Did you decide in that moment to just start writing code? Did you bring on a person to help you like get it going? Like what was you made this decision and then what?
well, I made the decision, but it's crazy because I think because of COVID, I was grounded. We were grounded. And so before that, I knew that it was an issue, but because I travel, I was a road warriors for, I traveled like Sunday through Thursday every week, because to be on site with clients. And so
Mhm.
when COVID hit, we were all grounded, and I always wanted to do something. So I said, maybe it's a time to start looking at this. So I went ahead and started looking for, first of all, the platform. I found that, and then I said I started doing research. Looking at what it would take to create a SaaS. And some other things. I knew I had a technical background, but I didn't know. I didn't know my HTML and some of my programming stuff would come to use until I started looking. And I did hire out, initially, I hired out a couple of people, a couple of companies to do it. But, with IT, the thing is that what I envisioned in my head, and on paper was not what I got. So it was like,
Oh no.
no, this is not working. So I was spending money on a couple teams, to do this. And it just didn't come out right. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna have to do it myself. I have to do it myself. And there's a lot of learning involved, but that's how I took it, the bull by the horns, and said, hey, I already bought the platform, so I got to use it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So I started out probably maybe what, 3 years ago, 3 years ago, building, and just taking my time with it. But also, I'm a consultant, so I still do freelance stuff, and I was able to learn a lot of things along the way as to what I did need in this application. So,
Yeah, that was gonna be my question of was this more of a side job at first or a side project, so to speak? And it sounds
mhm.
like you did a bit of both from the consulting age until are you back on the road? Are you currently a road warrior again, or is all your energy on this now? Have you switched to being full time?
um, Yeah, well, actually, I'm not on the road, but I do a lot of freelance in between, maybe 3 months, 6 month contracts in order to finance my business. Because one thing I didn't want to do is get into the business with being in the red. Going out
Yeah.
and see a lot of companies when they start off. I think a lot of loan people want you to take out a loan and think that you have to do it that way. And the
Mhm.
thing is, you just have to be patient. You can't always just go out and get money, because guess what? You got to still pay that back. You know what I mean? And I didn't
That's
want to be
true.
in the red. So I said, hey, let me take my time with this, make it a side thing. I can feed it with my income, and that's what I started doing. That's what I did. And it's great because honestly, being a consultant, I know what they charge per hour for consultant fee to do the work. And I save myself about $70,000 as far as hours. If I'd had a
Wow.
team to do it, yeah, if I'd had a team to build it, I know I priced a few of them, and you're talking $200 an hour per person. So do
Right.
the math. You get a team of 5 people. It don't take long to run that money up, you know?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is
So,
true. The difference between like a SaaS product versus a managed service product, it definitely has its pros and cons, and cost is definitely associated with that. So
yeah.
you learned all this on your own in terms of you bought a platform. Was the platform just like a bare bones framework that then you created features
Yeah.
inside? Like, tell me more about
Right.
that.
Well, the platform was just, it wasn't, anything at all. I had to get the frame up as well as the walls and everything around it. So it was just basically a tool to actually build on that platform. So I had to learn the software in order to build it. And I did hire out a couple of developers to help me with certain things, because I started originally. I started my software looking at the security aspect of it, right? What can it do to help us on the IT security side? But then as I started developing it, and I put the frame up, and I said, okay, we got to have security within this too. So started building those components, as well as some of the other features that a person would need to do, not only just seeing data, but you need to be able to export that data out. You need to be able to edit that data if you need to. You need to be able to delete that data if you have a record or something that you is no longer needed. So I started looking at adding more things to it. And the more things I added to it, I said, well, crap, man, this thing can be used for all IT. I mean, for development as well. Because what it does is it allows you to see what you have in your EHR system. We deal with end users, so we deal with thousands of different people. So you got your employees, but then you also have other entities, external vendors, business associates, and all that are also um, needing access to this electronic health record, needing access to see patients for various reasons, whether it's legal, insurance companies, we got all these other external people. Well, our HR systems, they only keep track of employees. So if you're not an employee, then how are we keeping track of you? You see what I'm saying? So by me building this, it allows us to add vendors. It allows us to add third-party business people in here and say this is the access they should get, and whether or not training. So it's more of a validation tool, basically, that can work for everyone. But I didn't realize that when I started. I think I was trying to find a solution for our issue of how can we identify, what access and training that's involved with provisioning, in healthcare. And actually it just tied into it. And I said, well, heck, if the IT can use it, so can the onboarding managers that have new people coming into the organization that are doing transfers or new hires, that type of stuff. So I built in a view only section so that they can still have access and they can actually view what the IT department's doing on the back end side. So I can't hear you.
Oh, yep. Yep. Rookie move right there. That just happened. It's kind of wild how one thing leads to another, right? Where you start off with a clear single problem and then you add on to it. At what point is the product in a good spot where it's, I don't want to say done, because building products is like a
Yeah.
painting and it's never done. Let's be real. But in a spot of like, it has the core features it needs and
Yes.
you can go from here, or are you continuing to add to it? Where are we?
It's in a good state right now. It's up and running and stuff, and everything's intact. So I mean, it's at that point. I think eventually would build more onto it if with the clients and the features that they want. But for the most part, yeah, and it's pretty robust because, like I said, it's going to be able to. We have 3 different levels of access, so that provides services for each
Mhm.
area. So if you have security, access provisioning teams can manage. And then we have for the development teams who are actually building some of the profile things, because in healthcare, what ends up happening is you take all these components that you have different access levels for different things, and then you put those into what we call a profile or template. That template gets assigned to a user. So therefore, that for development teams, they kind of work in pockets, like if you're on the orders team or you're on the clinical team or you're on this or that team, basically, um, with Trimax, we put all those different spokes on the same wheel so that everybody's running a lot smoother. So it's good for development team because they can see that information as well. Um, they're developing that application or profile for someone. So they a job title and then what is the training component that goes with it. So
So do you have are you up and running? You got some clients in there and things are going smoothly, or this is the point where you're just turning that piece on, where now you're sort of making that leap now into getting clients.
yeah,
How did you
actually I
roll it
have
out?
actually, I did, had to go through all the testing and all that stuff, and I had to hire that stuff out. But yeah, right now I have a potential client that I'm going to be demoing my software to. I've had a few people, investors that want to buy the software, but of course I'm just getting started with it, so I don't want to sell it. It's like,
That's
because I
fair.
yeah, it's like, well, and it's different with enterprise, versus like selling a product. This is a product, but it's also an enterprise solution. So for hospitals and organizations to determine, if they want to go with it, they basically sometimes drag their feet on stuff. But because I'm in the arena already with healthcare, uh, I have a little bit of an edge or a little advantage, so
Mhm.
uh, I am reaching out, like I said, I have a potential client now that I want to demo and get it going. Because I know that once that happens, then, my hope is to standardize this across the country because it's needed. And
Mhm.
it has, with healthcare and ransomware being an issue, one of the biggest concerns with security, especially in healthcare, is that we do not, there's not a good way to validate all the type of users that are in the EHR system.
Yeah. And I imagine there's some disparate issues too, where if there's different systems that need to sort of talk to each other too, healthcare is huge,
Yeah.
and everybody
Mhm.
while you hope that everybody uses the same tech stack, that is not always the case. So having a
Right,
centralized place of knowing what all the tech is and access to all of the things, I imagine, is a huge opportunity and lifesaver, in some ways, quite
right.
literally. Um, what's in your way now? Like you're starting to get up and running. Do you have any major challenges, or it's just like that next step, and you don't see it as a challenge? Where are you now?
Well, right now, the biggest challenge is marketing. Marketing. Oh my God, I didn't know it was such a, marketing is huge. I think bigger than the actual, granted, I spent a lot of work on the software, but man, when I started looking at marketing, I did hire a company, and man, I did not get good results for about 4 months. And I was like, dude, I'm not gonna keep paying you and I don't see anything. And and I think with marketing being the big issue is just trying to find the right people, to do what you expect or what you want.
Mhm.
Like digital marketing, trying to find somebody to do, work with your videos, but then also your videos have to have some good punchlines to get people's attention, that type of stuff. So I think marketing is probably the most biggest challenge right
Like,
now.
you know, saved the company $70,000. Like those
Yeah,
kind
there
of
you go.
punchlines.
Yeah,
Those right there.
something. Right, there you
Goodness
go.
me.
And I'm not a
Uh,
marketing person, so I'm trying to, right now, before I just go out and, like I said, I had the experience of hiring a company, and didn't get good results. I said, okay, let me fall back for a little bit and kind of assess the situation a little bit more. I'm not somebody that jumps real quick into making a decision and just throwing my money out there. So I got to kind of assess it first.
and it's very easy to throw your money out there in marketing and have it
Yeah,
feel like it vanished overnight.
yeah,
It's a
exactly.
black hole for sure. And I think startups
Yeah,
are always in that like go time or not go time with marketing. And I think it's smart for you to take a minute and say, what's the slow burn here? Like marketing isn't the faucet it used to be. There was a time where you could put money in and money would come out
right.
the other end pretty
Yeah,
instantaneously. But especially with the B2B buyers, especially on the enterprise side, you're probably running into some challenges with it not just being one buyer, but multiple decision makers that you got to
right.
convince, and long sales
Exactly.
cycles and those sort of things. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
tough. You said
yeah.
marketing's huge. What does that mean to you? Why does it
Well,
feel
because
big?
because the thing is that first of all, I feel like um, you have to have a good niche with wording, trying to reach people, trying to break it down to where because I think when I first started, it was like, oh my God, that's like way too long for a video. My video 3 minutes, nobody's going to pay attention to that. You know what I mean? So being able to use good, powerful words to make things happen. That's number one with marketing. Number two, even your email game and stuff. Trying to get the right you can have the right email candidates, but if you don't put out that information correctly, people are not going to pay attention to it. It's going to go to your spam box or go, you know what I mean, somewhere, and they're not even
Hmm.
going to click and open it. So being able to find the right platform for that. Also, being able to with Google, trying to get your SEO done and you're not more than likely you're not going to get on the first page because most time the ads are there first. But hey, I'd like to be on the second page, man. I'm asking for that. I'll take that, versus like the 20th page. So those type of things. There's just so many different avenues of marketing. You got even I've been like Yelp and some of these other platforms. You got to create a platform for every single niche, like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, so and then you have to maintain them. You see,
Yep.
you
The
have to
consistency
maintain them.
piece.
Exactly. So you can't just It's not like you can just send out a video and then once a month. You got to do this crap like I don't mean to call it crap, but I'm just saying you got to
I
do it
mean,
like quite often.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
it's like, wow. So it's a lot.
you gotta,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it is. Yes. And when you list it off like that, it does feel incredibly overwhelming, especially when you're also trying to build the product, launch product, QA the product, make sure that as you get customers into it, it's all good. Um,
Right.
yeah, it's, when you have three parts of the funnel to building that awareness and then bringing them into the middle of consideration and trying to let them know why you're the solution and then going through that sales cycle, it's
Right.
even breaking down those pieces and how to activate each one is, yeah, it's why you will have a team, Darlene, and it'll be glorious, and I know it's not right this minute. um but I think you're focusing on the right things, right? Video is a huge opportunity, especially if you can
Yeah.
get them into a sort of clippy and quippy and, show off the product in a really intentional way of this, this is the problem you're probably facing, and this is the thing that this thing does to solve an exact problem.
Yes.
Is a great clips are all the rage these days. It's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that another key important thing is time. Timing.
Mhm.
I think that that's so important too because not only whether or not you have the time, but just the fact that when you're putting something out, and you don't want to keep being too redundant, too soon with the video. It might all I've kind of noticed, okay, I check my numbers and my analytics and stuff, and it's like, okay, I don't want to keep putting out too many videos. You know what I mean? And now I'm at the point where I think I need to start showing my face more because people relate to you a little bit better when and I'm not really a big on being on the forefront, and being on the camera and stuff like that. I'm kind of behind the scenes, but I'm trying to learn how to do that. So those are the challenges
Yes,
that I face. Yeah.
it's why you're here. It's why we got connected. Yes.
Yes.
I was excited to share your story. I think it's an important one. I think you're a great example of somebody who saw his problem and went after a solution. You had this beautiful correlation between no, correlation is the right word, but this where you had the nursing side and you were already in the healthcare, and you already saw those challenges from their
Mhm.
side, the user side, to then being on the IT side, feeling that pain, and then now building the
Yeah.
product. You have this perfect visibility through that, and people
Mhm.
need to hear that story, Darlene. So way to get out
Yeah.
there, way to be.
Yeah.
I believe I believe that your first marketing hire, I know you mentioned you hired a company, but really the first marketing hire is you, the
Right.
founder,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yes, it is. And I think I think because a lot of times you hear all these buzzwords, when you because the thing about it is that I can do a lot of different things, but when you set out to have your own business and stuff, people can tell you different things, but at the end of the day, it's your journey is going to be your journey. I mean, because it's different for everybody. And, sometimes you try to look for guidance. So you think you need to go out and be like, oh, hey, I need to hire a marketing company because that's what the book says, right? That's what it tells you. But the thing about it is that, like you said, it starts with me because I can market my own product, but it's just a matter of what timing, and then also how quick I am to want to turn around and make a profit. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And for
Yes.
me, it might be I can take my time with it, but for somebody else, it might be, man, I got to make profit because I'm in the hole
You gotta move.
already. You see what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
it really does
So,
depend on where you are in that journey of whether you have startup money and investor money or whether you're bootstrapping it. And I think the approach you're taking from a bootstrap standpoint is wonderful, especially in this market where it's actually really hard to raise Series A money.
mhm,
The investors are tightening their belts and then they're kicking that money down to the B and the C rounds for companies that are already up and running to see where they can place bets there. So I
right.
actually think this is a wonderful story to tell right now of how you can slow roll it, bootstrap it, get it going on your own terms,
Yeah.
and have that control. I mean, that's to not have investors
Right.
poking at you to where's my money, I think. And to then and this shift happens too, where you go from being a practitioner, right? The person writing the code and building the platform and all of the wonderful things you've learned. When you get investor money and having to build very quickly and build that team up, you go from building to managing. It's a different shift. And
Right.
it sounds
Right.
like this was really the right place, the right solution for you and path for you, and in learning the code and writing it and building the platform.
Yeah.
Um, it's
It
amazing.
really, yeah, it really is, because the one thing that I am happy, which I didn't know at the time, is that because I did take the time to learn the software and build it, now if something were like a break fix or something, I don't have to farm that out and pay a lot of money to have it fixed, because I at least know, I can do that. Now when I get to a point where I want to do that, and when I get my developers, on a full-time basis, when I can afford it, then hey, that's great. But guess what, I learned a valuable thing, because I know exactly what they're talking to about when they bring it to me and say, hey, this isn't working, or we want to enhance this and this. It's like, okay, because I know how the framework is. I built the framework and the structure, so it's going to be easy for me to fix, and it's not going to be as cost effective. And that's what I'm happy about, which I didn't know at the time, but I'm happy that I took the time out to learn it. And it may have taken me, 3 years, 2 3 years to build it, but guess what, it's something that'll last for a lifetime. So
Yes, it will. That's awesome. Um, when you started building, I love this question because whenever we start something new, whether it's building a company, having a baby, buying a new house for the first time, whatever that
yeah.
new stage of thing is, the advice monsters love to present themselves and tell you exactly what you need to do and how you need to do it and when you should expect things. My favorite advice that did not pan out for me was I had twins. And somebody told me it's really hard for the first 9 months, but I promise you after that it gets easier. And that is a big fat.
I
So
don't
what
think
for
so.
you so what for you when you started this company and that advice started coming, or you started seeking it, because that's also good too. I loved how you mentioned like trying to find those advisors, trying to find that help. What
Hmm.
advice for you either totally landed, it was good advice, you stuck to it, it worked out, or even didn't, or maybe you got bad advice? What sort of advice sticks out to you, good or bad, that you got?
um I think the best advice I got was uh, to be, and that's on a spiritual level. I'm a spiritual Christian, so the best advice I got was to not worry about it, just to be patient and just keep going. Because when I started this, man, I'm telling you, I did not think it was going to be me. When I was sitting here ranting and raving about this, like somebody needs to do this, I thought it was going to be like a whole team of this and that, but God put it on my spirit for me to do it. I'm like, hold up, me? Like, so I had to like rethink this stuff, man. I was like, and I saw nothing but a black hole. Trust me, I did not even see the light at the end of it. I'm like, okay. But yeah, for me, it was just learning how to be, it's okay just to be patient, because I already knew I have a great career already, being a consultant. I traveled, I've done stuff, and I have that experience. So you can always fall back on what you're doing. So you have to be patient and just basically learn that stuff will come. It takes time. Like even when I did my Google, set up my Google, and I said, oh, I'm gonna do the Google advertising, and I'm gonna, people are gonna come, and that stuff takes that stuff takes 6 months before they even start, your numbers start changing. So I think the biggest advice I can give you is just be patient and know that, every day that you're, just don't quit. Every day that you're working at it, it becomes a good day, because it's a brand new day. So
Mhm.
you don't never know. Somebody may come and change your whole world that day, you don't know, but you got to keep going. and you got to be patient and not be in a hurry, because most people, they say businesses fail the first year, but that's because you might, some of it could be because you're impatient and you want to make money. Everybody wants to make money, but you're going in head first, you know.
Mhm.
So chill out and
Yeah.
just keep going. That's the thing. That would be my recommendation. What I learned, was good advice, and that came from upstairs. So
I love that, and it's the progress over perfection piece, right? Like, if you're putting one foot in front of the other and you're seeing those small wins at first, even if it's just like,
hmm
logging into a platform. We all know how that goes,
right,
right? Even
exactly.
if it's just, that small win and building on those. What were some of those initial milestones or small wins that you knew you were onto something where you felt like I can keep going. This has got something.
Yeah, when I started, uh I think, like I said at the beginning, it was a black hole, right? So
Yeah.
when I, and the thing about it was, is that I already paid for stuff. I had money invested in it. So I think just the commitment, and when I got the frame up and I got some kind of structure there, then I said, okay, let's see. Cause there was times that I really struggled, and there was times I felt like, man, forget this crap, man. I'm not doing this. It's too much. But I didn't want to. I think for me, I didn't want to seem like a failure to myself. Probably was harder on myself than anything, because there wasn't nobody else around to put the blame on. So, but no, I think, that was probably the hardest thing, I think. Or once I got the frame up, then I kind of knew, that, okay, I got to keep going with this. And I just kept going, and I just kept going, and I'll still keep going, because it's something that I like to do. It wasn't like I didn't like, being a developer and building and trying to do some things. I knew that and then also, as I was freelancing working, I was thinking about the build, and I was thinking, oh shoot, this would be, I didn't think about this. This would be a good asset to it. You see, so I
Yeah.
kind of was in the midst of it as I was building, and that's one thing I can say I'm really happy about, because some people quit their job, and I'm sure if I had the luxury of doing that, I probably would, but because I was still in the arena and still working it, it gave me a lot of ideas and stuff to help make my software a lot more robust. Yeah. Eh,
That hands-on. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. I think finding those moments of those wins, setting the
hmm
framework up, building that first feature, seeing it in
Yeah.
action, seeing how you can
Right.
actually use it out in the field, like, wow, that's definitely gotta
Yeah.
feel, yes to that. This was
Well, and then the
amazing,
testing
Darlene. Oh, yeah.
too. Oh, I'm
Say
sorry. And
that?
then the testing as well, because I hired, believe it or not, I had to set up these test scripts and stuff, and I wanted to test, like I would normally do an implementation. And I hired my family members to do my testing. Yes, I wrote the scripts out and they could follow them. So that was that was a great monumental moment for me. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like, hey, I chose five different five different states, and had them go through those test scripts, and I'd put them on the server and all that, and they could access them and stuff, and paid them to do it, and they would give me the errors and what I was expected to see and all this and that. So yeah, that was that was like a monumental story for me. So that I hired
Why was
family
it
members.
funny that you were able to hire family and bring them into it?
Oh
Oh,
yeah, it's like
yes.
we're gonna do some work here.
Put you to work. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is amazing. Darlene, if people want to learn more about your product and about you and follow your story, I know I'll be following. I'll be on the edge of my seat. It's gonna be amazing. Where can they find you? Where do you hang out? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Twitter? Is X? Threads?
On
Where are you?
LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn under Darlene Collins. I don't even know how. I think it's just Darlene Collins LinkedIn. I do have my company has a YouTube page. I mostly, for me, my personal account is on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Nice.
And Facebook is mostly business. Yeah. I'm not a big, I need to probably do a little bit more, but it's like I'm not out there like that. You know what I mean? Personally, but my company is. So, but my personal
Yeah.
account is on LinkedIn. So,
LinkedIn's a place to be to make that networking happen, so you're in the right spot. Last question. I've been meaning to ask this, and I forgot, but now I was about to say your URL. It came to mind. The name. This is always fascinating for me. Where did the name Trimax Access? Did I say that right? Trimax
try.
Access Solutions come from? Yeah.
Well,
Where'd the name come from?
it came about because it combines access management, um, our development teams, and then our training curriculum, our training requirements. So it creates a triangle. So, and that's what it supports for the IT side. So that's where the name came from. I wanted Trimax, but of course it wasn't available. So I ended up going with Trimax Access Solutions because of security.
Yeah.
And if you look
Access for
closely
sure.
on
That's
my,
great.
yeah, if you look closely on my brand there, you'll see the names imprinted into the triangle. The way I designed it, it's access management as well as training and development all combined together. So you'll see it. It's tiny, but
Mhm.
it's in there. Yeah.
I love the triangle. I think that's such a key symbol to represent this and for those three things to come together because you really do need when you're talking about cybersecurity, you can't just hand off a platform. You need help managing it, and you need that
Hmm.
training because everybody's got to
Right.
know what what goes into making this secure at the end of the day.
Right.
So
Yeah.
rock
And it's a requirement for most hospitals that their employees be trained on the software solution. So those are validation points that access management has to do is to make sure training and development and all that stuff is in check. So that's why, like I said, the software is very powerful in that respect. So
Well, if Darlene has piqued your interest and you want to go check the software out, you can go to trimaxaccesssolutions.com, and there's even a little demo button there, so be sure to jam that and go check it out. Darlene, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for joining
yeah,
me.
thank you so much, and you have a great day. I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll
Thanks, you too.
see each other again in the future.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. All righty.